Good evening. I'd like to call the meeting of the Urbana City Council to order. Would the clerk please call the roll?
Ms. Ammons, Mr. Brown,
Here.
Mr. Jacobson,
Here.
Mr. Madigan,
Here.
Ms. Marlin,
Here.
Mr. Roberts,
Here.
Mr. Smythe,
Here.
Mayor Pressing.
Here. The first item of business is the approval of the minutes of the previous meeting, July 7th, 2014.
I'll move approval.
Second.
Motion by Roberts, seconded by Marlin. Any additions or corrections to the minutes? If not, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Those opposed? That motion carries. Are there any additions to the agenda? Okay, we'll move on to petitions and communications. I have Carletta Donaldson. We do? Oh, I have the old agenda.
Okay, here, try that.
Oh, that's really nice. Thanks for telling me.
I'm sure we can do one right now.
Just for a moment, if we could pause for a moment of silence, especially in light of several things going on in the world, in our state, and of course, in our local community.
We don't have a public hearing.
Okay, as I noticed, of course, I wasn't at the meeting last night, nor have I had an opportunity to look at the meeting online or on television, but I see that the tasers are coming up again under F1B, I guess for final approval or further consideration. As we consider, or as you consider voting on this grant for the tasers, I'd just like to call your attention to some of the activities that have been going on in our local community, and I'm just wondering if, in light of what's been going on, I don't believe that the tasers would have had any effect at all. And then also, in light of the weapons of choice in the community, it's very clear to me from the citizen police training I took in spring of 2013 that the police will certainly respond as they are faced with whatever weapons of choice they're faced with. So that's very clear to me. And one other thing in considering the final resolution on the tasers, or the request for the grant for the tasers, is in the last 5 to 10 years, how many incidents has there been that would have been better handled with the use of tasers? And that's one thing that I haven't seen in the information. That's locally. So I believe that the grant would probably be better used other than for the tasers under the given guidelines. Another question that I had was on the landlord in Southeast Urbana. Will we know what the outcome of that is, if any, if that's final at any point? Or is there any update on that that can be discussed?
Everything that happens will be public.
Okay, very good. So nothing has happened up until now? Or what's the, there's no final disposition of that? Or?
No.
Okay, okay. And then, of course, the other litigation regarding the city employee Walden. Is there any update on that that can be shared, or where are we at this point?
That also will be public.
Okay. Very good. One other question I have concerning the approval or unapproved minutes being distributed before they are approved. I noticed in the packet last week, I think the Traffic Commission meeting, they had a set of unapproved minutes in the packet within the City Council. Is there any reason why we can't receive unapproved minutes before you approve them? Is that, I don't know who would answer that, or? And
Phyllis,
specifically, I guess
the clerk would like to answer that,
Okay.
I think.
According to the statutes of the state of Illinois, we're not to release any minutes that have not already been approved by the city council. So you won't see the unapproved minutes until they have been approved by council.
And then as far as you know, that's just for City Council minutes?
That's, and committee of the whole.
Okay, okay, alrighty. And then just to mention, the Walk as One last week, where the Urbana School District partnered with, I believe, the city of Champaign, cities of Urbana, and the school district partnered with these entities. And I thought one good thing that came out of it, that they were able to make contact with some of the residents, but even after a week, some of the residents are moving. And of course, there'll probably be other residents moving in. So that's one thing to consider as we go forward as well, that people are moving quickly with the upcoming deadlines. Thank you.
Thanks. Bishop King and Reverend Dr. Evelyn Underwood do not wish to speak, but for the record, they want us to know that they're still concerned about the Dr. Ellis subdivision sewer problems. Thank you. Is there anyone else? I made a mistake. We should have gone into closed session first, but we'll just do it right now. Is there a motion?
I move that we go into closed session for the purpose of pending litigation issues pursuant to 5 Illinois Consolidated Statutes 120/2 C11.
Second.
Okay, there's a motion and a second. Would the clerk please call the roll?
Mr. Brown?
Yes.
Mr. Jacobson?
Yes.
Mr. Madigan?
Yes.
Ms. Marlin?
Yes.
Mr. Roberts?
Yes.
Mr. Smythe?
Yes.
Mayor Pressing.
Yes. Okay,
I move that we go back into open session.
A second.
is Mike Madigan on the line?
Jason's got to get him on. Guess we should wait for Mike.
Okay. There's a motion to go back into open session. It's been seconded. Would the clerk please call the roll?
Mr. Brown?
Yes.
Mr. Jacobson?
Yes.
Mr. Madigan? Ms. Marlin?
Yes.
Mr. Roberts?
Yes.
Mr. Smythe?
Yes.
Mayor Pressing.
Yes.
And I'll vote yes for that too, Phyllis.
Okay, we have a yes from Mr. Madigan. Thank you. Unfinished business, I don't think we have any that we're going to deal with tonight. Reports of standing committees, the
Okay.
Committee of the Whole.
All right. I have several items to report to the City Council from the Committee of the Whole. The first is Resolution 2014-07-039R. This is a resolution authorizing a sister cities arrangement between the City of Urbana, Illinois, and Thionville, France, pursuant to the Sister Cities International Program. And with enthusiasm, I move approval.
Second.
Okay, motion by Roberts, seconded by Smythe. Any discussion? Would the clerk please call the roll?
Mr. Brown?
Yes.
Mr. Jacobson?
Yes.
Mr. Madigan?
Yes.
Ms. Marlin?
Yes.
Mr. Roberts?
Yes.
Mr. Smythe?
Yes.
Okay, that motion carries. Dennis.
Next is Resolution number 2014-07-037R, a resolution authorizing the submission of a grant application for the 2014 Edward Byrne Justice Assistance Grant. And for the committee, I move approval.
Motion by Roberts, seconded by Smythe. Any discussion? Diane.
I just wanted to clarify for the public that this is a resolution that just allows us to accept the $14,000 or $15,000 federal grant. It is not specifically for purchase of tasers unless the City Council approves that down the line. So this simply gives us the ability to accept the money.
Any other discussion? Would the clerk please call the roll?
Mr. Brown?
Yes.
Mr. Jacobson?
Yes.
Mr. Madigan?
Yes.
Ms. Marlin?
Yes.
Mr. Roberts?
Yes.
Mr. Smythe?
That motion carries. Dennis.
Next is Resolution 2014-07-038R, a resolution approving, authorizing, entering into, and executing an intergovernmental agreement between the City of Urbana and the County of Champaign concerning funding for reconstruction of Philo Road. This is joint funding for reconstruction of Philo Road south of Windsor Road to the city limits. And for the committee, I'd move approval.
Second.
Okay, there's a motion and a second. Any discussion? Would the clerk please call the roll?
Mr. Brown?
Yes.
Mr. Jacobson?
Yes.
Mr. Madigan?
Yes.
Ms. Marlin?
Yes.
Mr. Roberts?
Yes.
Mr. Smythe?
That motion carries.
Next is an ordinance, number 2014-07065, an ordinance approving a First Amendment to an agreement for use of a right-of-way with Gargoyle Technologies Incorporated, doing business under the Volo Broadband,
Yeah.
and this would be for Broadway Avenue between Water Street and Main Street. And for the committee, I move approval.
Is there a
Second.
second? Okay, second by Bill Brown. Any discussion? Would the clerk please call the roll?
Mr. Brown?
Yes.
Mr. Jacobson?
Yes.
Mr. Madigan?
Yes.
Ms. Marlin?
Yes.
Mr. Roberts?
Yes.
Mr. Smythe?
That motion carries.
All right. And next is an ordinance number 2014-07-063, an ordinance revising the annual budget ordinance for the fiscal year 2014 to 15. This has to do with consolidated social service funding. And this was sent to the city council earlier on the 7th of July. And for the, I guess this is really just,
It's from the committee.
it's from the committee.
Yeah.
Okay, so from the committee, I move approval.
Second.
Okay.
Okay, motion by Roberts, seconded by Brown.
Move deferral.
Oh, you want to defer it?
Second.
We have 6 votes, I believe. I think we do. I don't know.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6.
Okay,
With Mike Madigan present by.
right.
Oh, okay. Well, then fine. Withdraw my
Um,
motion.
You're going to remove your,
I withdraw my motion.
he withdrew. Okay, so there's a motion and a second was by Brown?
Bill Brown.
Okay. Any discussion? Would the clerk please call the roll?
Mr. Brown?
Yes.
Mr. Jacobson?
Yes.
Mr. Madigan?
No.
Ms. Marlin?
Yes.
Mr. Roberts?
Yes.
Mr. Smythe?
Yes. Mayor
You're
Pressing.
missing one.
Mayor Pressing?
Yes. Okay, that means we have 6 votes. So that motion carries.
And that's the end of the business coming from the committee of the whole.
Okay, thank you. We don't have reports of special committees, I don't believe, do we? Dennis?
Nothing new at this time.
Okay, reports of
Mayor,
officers.
I was
Okay.
going to report on UCTB items.
Okay,
Not quite ready. Hopefully get it settled this week. Individual council members have asked me about updates. Hopefully I'll have something by next Monday.
okay, thank you. All right, reports of officers. I see our comptroller, Rich Henschel, who has a report.
Good evening. I'd just like to distribute a letter received from the new auditor. It's a standard communication that they would like you all to receive. It's between the audit firm and the governing body of their client, which is you all. It's a pretty standard communication. It's pre-audit information on their approach to the audit and what they'll be looking for. And the only thing specific in there about the city is the timing of this particular audit. So they just wanted to make sure that you receive this, and that's all.
Anything else that you want to report?
Nope, that's it.
Okay, thank you. Any questions for Rich? Thank you very much. Are there any other reports of officers? None. All right, new business, ordinance number 2014-07-066 to allow an encroachment of an air conditioning unit into the required side yard in the city's R1 single-family residential district at 211 West Vermont Avenue. Hi. Would you like to introduce yourself?
I think Libby
Oh,
is
Libby
going
will
to.
introduce you, okay.
She might
I'd
do
like
better.
to, at this time, introduce Kevin Garcia, who has joined our staff as a planner too, and this is the first zoning case that he's bringing forward to the city council. So,
Yes.
welcome, Kevin.
Thank you. It's great to be here. And since it's my first time here, please be gentle.
You've seen some of our meetings.
So I'll try to be as brief as possible with hitting all of still hitting all the major points of the case, and then discuss what the zoning board briefly discussed as well. So with this case, the applicant is constructing a deck in the rear yard of a single-family house at 211 West Vermont Avenue, and in order to construct the deck as they would like to, they would need to move an existing air conditioning unit, and they would like to move the air conditioning unit into the east side yard. I know on the application it said the west side, but we're actually talking about the east side yard. Now, on this property, the east side yard is 5 feet 5 inches, and the required side yard in the R1 zoning district, of which this property is in, is 5 feet. So if they were to move the existing AC unit, which is 3 feet 6 inches by 3 feet 6 inches in the area, into that side yard, it would be encroaching 3 feet 1 inch, which represents a 62% encroachment, which is greater than 25% of the required side yard setback, so that would require a major variance, hence the case that I'm bringing forward today. The Zoning Board of Appeals did hear this case just last Wednesday, and they voted with 4 ayes and 0 nays to forward this onto the City Council for approval, if you so choose. Now, the ZBA and the City Council have approved similar setbacks in other residential districts such as this, but none of those were for relocating a piece of mechanical equipment. Those are for things like buildings, allowing buildings to encroach or allowing parking to encroach. And there's a list of a few of those that I pulled in your memo that you have in front of you. We have never approved a case that, as far as we can tell in our records, we've never approved somebody moving an air conditioning unit into the side yard. But if you go around Urbana, you will notice that there are existing air conditioning units in some side yards. Now, we don't know exactly how those came to be, if they were grandfathered in, if people were doing it without asking for it, or in some cases, previous zoning administrators may have approved those air conditioning units in side yards if it were subject to certain conditions, like being adjacent to a driveway, being set back from the neighboring house by a good distance, so it wouldn't cause any sort of noise, nuisance, or anything like that. I will point out that in this case, the AC unit would be, if you look at Exhibit D, I believe it is, the site plan. I can pull that up here as well. Exhibit D shows the proposed location of the air conditioning unit, and you'll notice that it is in the side yard next to the adjacent neighbor's driveway. So the unit would be at least, by our calculations, 15 feet from the neighboring house. The applicants have made a very good effort to reach out to the neighbors, and I've spoken to them at least 3 or 4 times by my count. And the neighbor is not protesting in this case. They don't seem to think that this would be a nuisance. There's the site plan. Let's see. Okay, so yeah, you'll just notice in blue where that AC unit would be, and then in relation to the neighboring house. We did ask the applicant if they could consider putting the AC unit in different spots. We asked if they could put it perhaps on top of the deck. They said that if you look at the site plans on here, which are Exhibit F, I think they're the last 2 pages of your packets, where the existing AC unit is, it's kind of like right in the middle of the deck. So building around it, it would create a disruption in the deck. If you put it on top of the deck, it would be a similar thing where you would be taking up usable space on the deck. Also, to move it behind the deck or off to one of the sides would cost a lot more due to, I'm no air conditioning expert, but having to run whatever mechanical systems you would have to either under the deck or under the house. So really the most efficient location would be installing the unit in the side yard as they proposed. If you were to approve this, I just want to discuss variance criteria, which we use to determine whether or not a variance should be given. So I'll just run through these really quickly, as starting on page 4 of your memos. So number 1, are there any special circumstances or special practical difficulties with reference to the parcel concerned in carrying out the strict application of the ordinance? Now, I didn't mention it before, but the neighborhood that this is in, it's all zoned R1, but it was platted quite a long time ago. So in the R1 district, the minimum lot width is supposed to be 80 feet. Pretty much every lot in this neighborhood is 60 feet, is somewhere around 60 feet. The only ones that actually meet, the standards for the R1 zones are ones where a couple of properties have been combined that were adjacent to one another. So pretty much every parcel in this neighborhood is an existing non-conforming use with respect to lot width, and also a lot of them with respect to side yard setbacks and the like. So the special circumstances in this case are that it is in this neighborhood with these smaller lot widths and setbacks. And if you look at the second variance criteria, it asks whether this variance would serve as a special privilege because the variance requested is necessary due to those special conditions. Like I said, with respect to this property, there are many more properties in the neighborhood that also meet these special circumstances. So it's not really unique to this property, the circumstances that exist, but they do make using and developing on those lots more difficult. So that's something to take into consideration. Number 3, the variance requested was not a result of a situation or condition having been knowingly or deliberately created by the petitioner. The variance is being requested based on the lot width and the existing setbacks, so it wasn't created by the petitioner. However, they could choose to meet the rules of our zoning ordinance as they exist. So that's just something to point out as well. Number 4, we do not feel that the variance would affect the essential character of the neighborhood. Number 5, as I mentioned before, the variance should not cause a nuisance to the adjacent property. The adjacent property owners seem okay with it. Also, the applicant has talked about installing screening, whether that be vegetation or a small fence around the AC unit, probably whichever is more practical. So we feel that there wouldn't be a visual nuisance either. And finally, number 6, the variance. We do feel that the variance represents generally the minimum deviation that would be required. The AC unit exists. It has given dimensions. So if they were putting it in the side yard, this is the minimum that you could encroach with the existing dimensions of the AC unit. So the options that City Council has tonight are either to approve the variance as requested based on the findings outlined in this memo. You can approve the variance with certain terms and conditions that we would ask you to articulate those terms and conditions, or you could deny the variance request. And we'd also ask, if you do that you clearly articulate why you'd be denying the request. Just to wrap up, as I mentioned before, the ZBA did recommend approval by a vote of 4-0 last Wednesday, subject to the conditions that the applicant installs landscaping to screen the unit as proposed in the application, and that the homeowners keep the unit in good working condition in order to reduce noise impacts. I can answer any questions that you have. I also know that one of the homeowners is here, Mr. Jake Bowers, and he could answer questions probably better than I can pertaining to the property.
Okay, any questions? Is there a motion?
I guess I have one.
Oh,
I have one.
go ahead.
So you say that the distance from the neighbor's home is 15 feet?
Yeah, I mean, I did a calculation just in our GIS, so, I mean, it would be
Yeah.
about 15 feet.
Well, I've lived in plenty of neighborhoods where there's 8 or 10 feet between the houses, and the neighbor's air conditioning unit is 6 feet from the house. What was the board's rationale for requiring a screen? I just think that's excessive, especially if the neighbor is not protesting.
Well, I think the rationale with that was, so I wrote that as a condition into the memo because it was something that that the applicant said they were going to do anyway. So I think they were trying to minimize the impacts on the neighbor. So my thinking
Well,
was.
I have a great appreciation for folks trying to be accommodating to their neighbors, but I don't necessarily know that it's appropriate. And I don't want to belabor this; it's an air conditioner, but why should we build that in as a requirement if the property owner is willing to do it on their own? I don't necessarily know that we ought to set that precedent. I think we ought to just approve the variance and let the good neighbors put up their fence or their vegetation or whatever they choose to put up without it being required by the city. That's just my opinion.
Okay, anyone else? Is there a motion? Bill?
I just had a kind of a question, comment. The neighbor to the east, I think, has the same situation. Basically, I went by there, and they have an air conditioner on the east side of their house. So you're kind of trading a variance on one side to compensate for their variance they must have received on the other side, or maybe it was put there when it was built or something. But
Yeah, like I said, there are quite a few properties in that neighborhood that have that have an existing AC unit, and we're not sure exactly how they all got there, but they are there, including, that property to the east, and that one is closer to the adjacent neighboring house than this one would be.
Mhm.
So,
okay, thanks.
Yeah.
Dennis?
Well, I'll make a motion that we approve this request for a variance.
Second.
Okay, motion by Dennis Roberts and seconded by Charlie Smythe. And you wanted to make a comment, Eric?
So, this is only marginally relevant, but I happen to know that in the state legislature, when a new legislator introduces their first bill, they are hazed. All sorts of people put up all sorts of, and Mike has probably seen this too, and Laurel has seen it. People put up all sorts of crazy objections to it, but that's not the tradition here. So
thank you.
I was not picking on you. I had a legitimate question, but you're
There's a
right.
disclaimer.
It's kind of funny to watch those watch the new members in the General Assembly get their hazings. I've seen dozens of them.
Okay, Dennis?
Yeah. I went by there and I talked to the neighbors at, is it 209, which is next door. And they, yes, I did notice that there was an air conditioner also on the east side of their house. They said it was already there when they bought the house, so it wasn't something that they did themselves. And that might be really the one reason why it might be useful to retain the option in the adoption of this ordinance of requiring or requesting that the new unit that's being put in at 211 be fenced or landscaped, because the units may, depending on the unit, it may be noisy, and landscaping actually might help muffle the noise a little bit. They said, the owners next door said that they thought that there was no problem, but of course they haven't heard it run yet.
Right.
So, but they weren't going to be objecting to the extent that they were going to come tonight. So, I think it's a thoughtful thing, and if it's being offered by the owner of the property as part of the agreement, I think why not accept it?
Diane?
Well, you have landscaping written in here. Does that include fencing or any other kind of wooden screening as well?
Yeah, I noticed that as well.
You could just,
I
it could
suppose
just
you
be,
could change it to say landscaping or fencing, or if you
or
just said
install
screening.
screening.
Or
yeah.
shielding, or
Yeah.
whatever.
The applicant shall screen the unit. Would that one?
Gesundheit.
I think we have some standard definitions for screening via landscaping or fencing, right? That's how.
That's from parking lots. This would be a pretty constrained area. I think if you change it to screening, that would mean either enclosure or some planting, or both. And that would give them the opportunity to
Flexibility.
pick what works for them.
Okay, so I would amend the motion to read the applicant shall screen the unit as proposed in the application.
As opposed to what?
As proposed in the application.
Oh, so you're not changing the
Well, what
wording?
did he
Just a
propose?
word that she is changing. We'll accept that as a friendly amendment.
Okay, is that okay with the second?
Yep.
It's okay with the second. Are we clear what the amendment is?
Yeah.
Okay.
It's changing the word landscaping to screen.
Okay, changing the word landscaping to screening. Any other discussion? Would the clerk please call the roll?
Mr. Brown?
Yes.
Mr. Jacobson?
Yes.
Mr. Madigan?
No.
Ms. Marlin?
Yes.
Mr. Roberts?
Yes.
Mr. Smythe?
Yes.
That motion carries. Thank you very much.
Thank
Did
you.
a nice job.
Thanks.
Next, we have an appointment. I would like to recommend that you approve of the appointment of Craig Schankweiler to the Traffic Commission. He will be replacing Joe Smith, who is retiring.
Second, or
I'll-
so
yeah.
moved.
I'll second that.
Okay, motion by Smythe, seconded by Roberts. Any discussion? All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those
Aye.
opposed? That motion carries. Thank you. Then there are several reappointments to boards and commissions. Design Review Board, Jeffrey Poss for a term through June 30th, 2017. And Jeffrey Poss again for the MOR Development Review Board, again through June 30th, 2017. And to the Tree Commission, Darren Eastburn, and that should read June 30th, 2017, when the term expires. And all these people have served for a number of years.
Move approval.
I'll second.
Okay, motion by Marlin, seconded by Roberts. Any discussion? All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Those opposed? That motion carries. Thank you all very much. There being no further business, this meeting is adjourned.